Hey everyone. Recently, many students has contacted me to see if there is any suggestion to prepare our upcoming Q1 exam and what kind of topic will be most popular in our exam. So for this one, first of all, we have to know all the chapters we have to giving by CPA for the survival guide are important. So CPA can test anything from the financial reporting perspective, assurance, finance, and tax. So in order to pass the exam, we have to prepare everything, not just focus on one or two topics or do not guessing what will be tested. That is very hard to guess because for our Q1 exam, we are not only testing for case, we also been testing for multiple choice. So for case, sometimes we can know those level A or hot topic, we can be prepared. However, for multiple choice, usually CPA will test all kind of topics. They want to ensure student really understand all the materials they has been assigned. So in order to pass the exam, my recommendation is do not guess what will be tested and focus on to study from each unit 1 to unit 8, and make sure at minimal level, you know all the principles and basic knowledge. Okay, so today I'm gonna to just briefly discuss based on my teaching experience and some of my past student note and there's memory what has been tested in their exam in the past before. We will take a look. Some of the topic is more frequent or easy and more easy, and we have to know from our case perspective. However, for the multiple choice, they can test anything. And the exam level multiple choice is really kind of hard. So in order to make sure you pass the multiple choice, make sure you do not spend so much time on your case. I noticed some of students who failed the exam, we have 60 minutes to allocate for the Q1 exam. And some of the students, they come back to me said they have spent an hour and a half or 2 hours to do the case because they want to make better. Then what the result is they do not have time to do the multiple choice. Multiple choice is not that hard. However, students fail for multiple choice because they do not have time. Their time management is not good. So half of the multiple choice question has been guessed. They even not read the question. They just have, first of all, no time, and second, and lost the patient to do the test, and they just quickly read what's the question and guess what's the answer because it's just A, B, C, D, right? So make sure your case, if you prefer to do your case first, that's okay, but do not spend too much time on your case. You have to follow the time frame because when CPA designs the exam, they clearly know how much students should allocate. And if you overspend time on one things like case, definitely you will do not have sufficient time to finish your multiple choice questions. Okay, now let's just briefly talk about the most hot topic of what being tested before we knowing like those case part, but those are just being tested. And some of the topics they may not test in the past, not means they will not test at this time or in the future. So this is just, today our topic is just like a brief reference to give you some hint and give students who do not really have time to prepare and really rush to study. And now you can using this at minimal level as a guideline to see what I should at least to know before I go to my exam. Okay, let's see my screen. So first of all, we know in the exam, we will be tested is 4 parts: financial reporting, assurance, finance, and tax. So, and for our case, we have the 3 opportunities most likely. One is SB case. Second is RFS case. And the next one is the non-for-profit, is ASNPO. So that are 3 cases we might see in our exam, and it's just to pick one of each, not like 3 cases. We only have 1 case in Q1. So for the financial reporting part, and usually we have to make sure at the minimal level, I see is at only minimal level, you have to be familiar with the first 6 units. The first 6 units as minimal level. And if you want, but if you need to pass the exam, because exam is getting harder, unit 7 and 8, you also have to spend time to study. Okay, so like for unit 1, usually we know very important topic is revenue from the SB, from the RFS. And SB, we have to know like the 3 steps to recognize revenue, SB 3400. And RFS, we should know is a 5-step revenue recognition criteria. Okay, and besides those things, we might to consider is we might to be tested as something like a gross versus net, or consignment, or bill of holding, or is royalty point, and all the other topics. It's all depend on how CP. But the most important for revenue at minimal level, you have to know is the 3400, the 3 steps, and RFS 15, the 5 steps. That is the minimal level we have to know. Okay, so after that, we should know is like inventory, like something like inventory definition and recognition, and we have to know how to calculate inventory FIFO, LIFO, those things. And then PPE, we should also knowing that. Those are something is very, very important topics at minimal level. You should be prepared. Then we're going to like something called government grants. We have to say related party transactions. And for related party transaction, our student have to knowing is about the flow chart, like how we getting to measure the related party transaction. That is on SB, there is a chart, and I believe that is our main topic when we learn this one. And also like something we have to know about the lease. Lease is very important, and lease is not that easy to get. Lease is from both leasee appointment, accounting and lesser, and we should know like capital versus expense under which criteria. They are very SB and RFS, except for the RFS leasee part, and the others are very similar, and some of them is just has 1 or 2 more criteria than the other ones. So for the lease, we at minimal level, you have to know when the lease should consider as capital lease, and when the lease should be considered as operating level lease. So that things. For the other things, maybe you have to know is non-monetary transactions. But for those topics, like this is very straightforward. Like for all your main topic in your ebook is something, first of all, minimal level you have to learn. Like non-monetary transaction is also how we should measure. They say like for non-monetary transactions, we should using fair value unless the following criteria happened. Okay, and then we should know is discontinued operation and non-current asset holding for sale. For the non-current asset holding for sale, we know from our CP learning, we have to say something like how to determine we should book it, right? So it's like, does the board of director or entity has already approved, and is that like this plan will not be changed? So those we have to learn. And the next we should know is the impairment of asset. Impairment of asset is getting very popular, and impairment of asset minimal level, we know there are 4 steps for both RFS and SB, and beside this, also pay attention to the indicator of impairment of asset, and this is more frequently testing. And then knowing like oral contract. Oral contract is also something has been tested before, contingency. And then we learning the next like decommissioning provision. Those like for the decommissioning provision, we said is for the RFS. For the SB, we called is ARO. And those, the next part, like beside what I mentioned before, those are the things at the minimal level you have to be prepared, very well prepared. And beside those, we also have to learn like a share-based payment, EPS, and like something called event after reporting period. And then we have to learn is foreign currency transaction, the investment in. Those are the second part group of the topic we have to learn. But make sure, first of all, to make sure you really understand the first group and then move on the second group. So anything in our Code 1 survival guide is very important. But because we don't have much time to do, and because there are so many topics to learn, you have to know how to group what you should learn. So go through every week PC and IP, especially for the PC, and you will see what is the topic you have to write, you have learned writing in your weekly PC, and you can do your small summarize and say those are very important topics. You have to minimal to know that. Okay, so that is how our suggestion on the FR. Assurance. Assurance is, first of all, for the case level, mostly we will be tested is audit planning memo. That is very important topic you have to know. Writing the full audit planning memo, writing the audit approach, writing the audit materiality, and then doing the audit procedure. But the audit procedure is based on each FR you has been assigned. So that things we have to know. And for the audit part, make sure you prepare like some small topics, such as review versus audit. Those things, they have been tested in the case for that before. And also like you have to know something like fraud or going concern, those small topics. Those are only focused on what will be tested in the case. For the multiple choice part, it can be anything. Like they might testing you the framework for assurance. They might test you is when we should accept new claim, or they might test you like very detailed information includes a risk assessment and, for example, like detection risk, control risk. So for the multiple choice, they can be in many topics. So you have to just prepare all those things. But if you want to focus on the case level at minimal, you have to know what I just mentioned and recommend. And then go to finance. So the finance for the case, I believe I remembered is they has been tested is for the business valuation. But remember, when we're doing the exam, it's not like how you did in your weekly assignment. I know some students said their weekly assignment is being really, really hard and so complex. I don't think that kind of level will be tested during the 6-minute exam and considered as one part of AO. So that makes no sense. So for the business valuation, at least you have to know how to get in the normalized income before tax. And then you times the multiplier provided to you getting the business value. So that is the minimal you have to get in those parts. And other than that, for the finance, sometimes they will ask you like some financing options. For example, if I'm borrowing from government or borrowing from my friend, or I just borrowing from bank, like which option will be better for me to build or to do the investment in my equipment or in my business. So that type of things, usually student has to do the advantage versus disadvantage comparison with each financial options. Okay. Other than that, finance can be a lot of things you should calculate through your MC multiple choice questions. So for tax part, the tax, first of all, we have to minimal level. We definitely has to know how to do the personal and the corporate tax return. That is very important. So for exam level, obviously, this will be just one AO and will not be as hard as what you did in your homework. So all the suggestion is knowing the flow chart, like the template, how you prepare the personal tax return versus how you prepare for the corporate tax return. And just as a very simple template, when the exam comes, you at least minimal level, you know the template, how to reach what you need. And if you get in the not correct answer on the calculation part, at minimal, we have already tried our best. And then for the tax, like some other small topics, such as employee versus contractors, like there are criteria like how we determine is they act as employee or act as a subcontractor, or something like a capital gain or loss. Those are things we have to know, but mostly, first of all, we have to know is to prepare personal and corporate tax return. And for others, the tax part seems like a finance. The multiple choice can ask you many topics because tax can test you many detailed information. So if just make sure when we study for exam, to make sure we have the time to allocate, sufficient time to allocate to our FR, financial reporting, then assurance. Then the next part is we can put the same layer, same level for both tax and both finance. So for some topics, like yesterday and in the past few days, I was being asked, many students has asked me is regarding for the hedging, like those topics on the unit 7, we have to learn hedging. That is a really very hard topic for, especially not only for Co1, even for the CFE student. That is not very usual we will see in our daily operation. So minimal, I would suggest student, you have to know the forward contract. At least you know that. And if we have seen some of the example in our case or in our homework, I think it's just about how we recorded for the forward contract. And the other things getting so complex. And if you don't have time, just pay attention, focus on more level A stuff. And the other is like something like do the EPS, earning per share. Remember, you have to calculate both basic and diluted. And for the basic EPS, there is clearly formula to calculate. And for the diluted, and you have to go through the whole step to getting that. And those things is, they might test you in case level. That is also because as long as it's on our survival guide, we can always be tested. There's no way we can say yes or no. So clear to say, oh, this will not. It's just if they are not tested in the case level, most likely you will have the one multiple choice question to ask for calculation, because EPS is very important topic in the real life accounting, okay? And the last one is, the one I'm just talking about before is just for the SB and the RFS. So for our ebook, the chapter 67 is non-for-profit. So because that one is just by chance, you will be picked up for the case for that or not. So but I think for the multiple choice question, you should have at least 1 or 2 questions will be related on this type of questions. So just to make sure, read through chapter 67 and at a minimal level to know the different contribution, how they are recorded, when they should be recognized under the different method. We know is we have the default method. We know we have the we have the restricted method. So knowing at least the minimal level, knowing those things, and also like we know, like for the good and the service, it is optional to do the recording. But if we choose to do so, there are criteria we have to follow. Just those information, at least you knowing that one, and to prepare for either it will test it is a multiple choice or it will be tested in our case level. So all those things are something I would like to share with everyone today. And if you have any more questions, feel free to contact me at any time. I will be happy to assist you. Thank you and see you next time.